Good evening and welcome to the 10th Annual Parkland College Foundation Entrepreneur of the Year program. My name is Greg Kozad, and tonight we celebrate innovation, hard work, community, and philanthropy. The Parkland Entrepreneur of the Year program, which is celebrating its 10th year, has three main purposes. One is to honor a local entrepreneur, tonight Dave Downey, who has added tremendous value to the community and his industry, as well as his alma mater, the University of Illinois. The second purpose of the program, in addition to honoring a local entrepreneur, is to celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit in our community and in our area. And the third part of the program is to provide dollars for Parkland College to promote programs that foster entrepreneurship. I'll touch briefly on all three of those items tonight. First, Dave Downey. Dave grew up in humble beginnings in Canton, Illinois, but quickly established his star quality when he attended the University of Illinois on a basketball scholarship. He was an outstanding player, well known for his scoring prowess, holding a single-game scoring record of 53 points, which still stands today. Yeah, that's great. However, perhaps lesser known, and doing a little research, is that Dave averaged 11 rebounds a game, which is quite a feat in and of itself to be a double-digit rebounder. Dave had been inducted into the Illinois Athletic Hall of Fame and the Illinois Men's Basketball All-Century Team, as well as the Illinois Athletic Hall of Fame a couple years ago. Recently, while Dave and I were visiting over lunch, he shared with me several interesting stories about his basketball career. One in particular I thought was very interesting, but maybe he'll share it with us later tonight. I can't tell it as well as him, is when he scored 24 points on John Havlicek and Bobby Knight, which was quite a feat in that and of itself. And the Ohio State coach Fred Taylor was razzing Havlicek about it, so maybe Dave will share with it later. But in addition to being a terrific basketball player, Dave was an outstanding student, and in 1963 was recognized with the Big Ten Conference's Medal of Honor for both excellence in academics and athletics. He was an honorable All-American and was drafted into the NBA, but decided to forego the opportunity to play professional basketball to continue to work in the insurance industry and obtain his law degree from the University of Illinois. Dave Downey quickly established himself as a leader and innovator in the insurance industry. He obtained the Chartered Life Underwriter designation and is one of the fewer than 20 people to have qualified for the top of the table during the entire period of its existence. He has served as National President of the Association for Advanced Life Underwriters and International President of the Top of the Table. He has also represented the life insurance industry before Congress, the Treasury Department, and the Office of Comptroller of Currency, as well as the Financial and Accounting Standard Board. Dave shared with me at one point during his career he thought about running for the United States Senate after reading the book Advice and Consent, but decided not to pursue politics as a long-range ambition. Dave was innovative and brought unique ideas which are more common to the marketplace now than they were in the insurance industry when he started his career in the 60s and 70s. For example, he told me that he always looked at the perspective of buying insurance from the buyer, whereas when the industry at that time, you were really representing companies and selling products for insurance. So he was a leader and a forethought in that area. Other quotes that Dave shared with me that I thought were very impactful: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Dave thought it was always important to be highly educated on all products that he represented, and the most important thing that he built was the relationship and an empathetic development of caring with each of his clients that truly set him apart. As Dave further told me, what matters most is how you deal with the person you're sitting across the table from. In addition to insurance, Dave has been heavily involved with the community promoting civil rights, particularly during the 1970s and 80s, where he served on a committee that helped with the integration of our local schools, as well as participating in the Model Community Coordinating Council. Dave has also been very active with the University of Illinois, having served as a trustee and been a major donor to the State Farm Center, which established Club 53 in his honor. One other quick comment about Dave. I think this is the 10th annual award, which I think is kind of cool that we've got that much longevity going. And it's somewhat appropriate, I think, because of Dale Kozad and Dave Downey have some similarities in background. Both Dave and Dale grew up with loving but financially challenged families in very small towns. Dave in Canton, Illinois, Dale in Sandoval, Illinois. Both worked their way through college and forged their professional careers, initially through the insurance industry. Both achieved their greatest professional success while living in the Champaign-Urbana area. I know how much my dad respected Dave Downey and what a true leader he was in the industry in which he came from. So tonight, Dave, we're going to honor you. The second purpose of the program this evening is to celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit in our community that promotes those who are willing to take risks and grow their business and improve the quality of life in our area. We have many outstanding entrepreneurs, and through Parkland and other programs, we would like to encourage entrepreneurship. Since this is a 10-year, I'd like to go back and just mention the previous honorees that we've had. In 2010, Clint Atkins. 2011, Rick Stevens, and I know Rick's here tonight. Rick, where are you? Rick? Oh, thanks, Rick. 2012, Dwight Miller. 2013, Rudy Frasca. I think they're members of the Frasca family here. 2014, Murray Wise. Murray, wave at us if you would. Okay. 2015, Steve Hillard. I know Steve's here tonight. Thanks, Steve. 2016, Lori Gold-Patterson. I think Lori's here tonight. All right, Lori. Great. 2017, Jeff Hartman. I know Jeff's here. Thanks, Jeff. And in 2018, Robert Libman and the Libman family. The third purpose of the program tonight is to raise funds for Parkland College. To date, there has been approximately $983,000 dedicated to the entrepreneurship program at Parkland. We're just short of $1 million. $642,000 has been raised by the founders and supporters of the Entrepreneur of the Year Banquet, and over $120,000 has been distributed in scholarship and for program support. Your participation here tonight helps foster this program. The Parkland College Entrepreneurial Program has been described by Parkland, and I quote, is committed to developing strong, educated leaders for today's workforce. The program provides scholarships to students demonstrating potential for growth as future managers, leaders, and innovators for immediate entry into industry and companies. Ultimately, the entrepreneurial program aims to increase the number of graduates with a strong work ethic and commitment to excellence that supports existing industry, creating a more attractive community for future employers. Parkland delivers great value for the dollar and is a great resource for our community. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Tom Ramage, the president of Parkland College, who I think is going into his 13th year. Tom, please come on up.
It seems like 13 minutes underwater. Good evening. Thank you all for being here. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of Parkland College, welcome to, as you heard, the 10th Annual Parkland College Entrepreneur of the Year celebration. With us tonight are some folks that I'd like to take just a minute to introduce, and I'll start with my bosses because that's always wise. Two members of our Board of Trustees are here, Mr. James Ayers, right over here, and his wife, Linda. And the second is Bianca Green and her husband, Jim. Thank you for being here. If you would, say hello to two of our long-serving but now retired trustees that have joined us today, Mr. Lyndon Warfel and Ms. Bonnie Kelly, somewhere in the room. It's good to see you both. And a special guest, Ms. Rachel Schrader. Rachel was the very, very first employee of Parkland College in 1966. Rachel, if you would stand. Thank you for being here. We have some friends from Springfield and Washington with us. Another long-serving trustee at Parkland College, who's now our state representative, Dr. Tom Bennett. Tom, there you go. And I think I'm looking in the same direction, Linda Yoakum from Congressman Rodney Davis's office, and Reno Jameson from Congressman Shimkis's office. Thank you both for your presence. Lastly, we have two of my administrative colleagues that I'd just like to recognize. One is on the program, but our Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, Chris Randalls, and our Vice President for Communications and External Affairs, Stephanie Stewart. Thank you both for being here as well. So on behalf of our faculty and our staff, it is my honor and my privilege to congratulate Dave Downey, along with John and Marge Albin, and say thank you for all that you've done for our community and this country, and to help us thrive and survive. I might add that I owe a little bit of extra thanks to actually all three of those individuals who have impacted my career in very different ways, but substantially and in a very meaningful way. So an extra thank you from me to all three of you. It was in 2009 that Parkland College, along with 8 founders, stepped forward to promote a program and a set of ideas designed to help our students and our community understand the value and the importance of entrepreneurship. Our founders recognized that the ability to adapt and to change and to learn quickly are perhaps 2 of the most important skills that a human being can have today. And our entrepreneurship programs at Parkland College are designed to help our students harness their passion, to take what they really care about, what they deeply feel for, and develop it into a business. But too many times those students give up their passions because it is hard, it is difficult. The challenges are significant and the skills that are required are many and diverse. So each day Parkland College is there. Our entrepreneurs are in development, in healthcare professions, as app developers, as artists, farmers, and small business owners, you name it. Our programs have grown over the past 10 years thanks to events like this, and we're very, very proud of our students that have benefited and participated and, most importantly, learned valuable lifelong skills that will serve them well in whatever direction they go from here. And there are thousands and thousands more students just like them at Parkland and elsewhere with the potential to become remarkable, just like Dave Downey and John and Marge Albin, and Murray Weiss, and Jeff Hartman, Rick Stevens, Steve Hilliard, Lori Gold-Patterson, George Chaplin, and all our past honorees. For many, all it takes is just a little bit of a push, just a nudge in the right direction. And that's part of our job at Parkland College, and it happens in one form every single day. There are 8 individuals that Greg mentioned that catalyzed this program, and they are listed in your program as founding members. Greg said their names. With us tonight are a few of those people, and if you get a chance to thank them for their efforts and their support of this program, please, please do. My thanks, again, to each of you for attending. You are what makes this program what it is. My congratulations to Dave, to John, and Marge. I offer you our sincere congratulations. Celebrate your accomplishments and your impact and your histories.
Good evening. I'm Tracy Walfelt, the Executive Director of the Parkland College Foundation. The Parkland College Foundation is pleased to host the 10th Annual Entrepreneur of the Year Banquet. Tonight is our pleasure to honor Dave Downey as a recipient of the V. Dale Kozad Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and to honor John and Marge Albin with the Lifetime of Entrepreneurship Award. Tonight we celebrate the spirit of entrepreneurship and its impact on our students and our community. In addition to supporting the Parkland Entrepreneur Network, this year the foundation has provided funding for 495 scholarships valued at just over $450,000. And over $500,000 in institutional and program assistance. Thanks to you and other donors in our community, that is almost $1 million to support the mission of the college and to engage the community in learning. We couldn't do our work without our wonderful volunteer foundation board, and I'd like to recognize those members now. If you would stand when I call your name. Charlie Chaplin, President. Carol Charlo, past president. Jim Ayers. Russ Hamilton. Bonnie Kelly. And Dan Marker. I'd also like to recognize Ellen Schmidt, the former executive director of the Parkland College Foundation. Ellen. The opportunity for our students in the Parkland Entrepreneurial Network, as well as students enhancing their skills for success, are made possible by the generosity of our Parkland College Entrepreneurial Founders Program, our sponsors, our donors, and each of you here this evening. I'd like to acknowledge and thank our presenting sponsor, Mike Guth, and the team from SuperValue. Mike, if you can wait. Program sponsors, Cozad Asset Management, the Libman Company, Josh Whitman and the University of Illinois Division of Intercollegiate Athletics, and News Gazette Media. Our corporate sponsors, Central Illinois Manufacturing, Jim Ayers, and JSM. And all of our event sponsors who are listed in your program for their support of our event this evening. We really appreciate the strong partnerships that you provide and how important it is to the success of Parkland College and this program. I would also like to thank the people who work with me day in and day out, Danielle Wilberg and Susan Goldenstein and Becky Reichert. If you guys would stand up. You know, it takes a lot of people to pull off an event this size, and these ladies are stellar in what they do, so I couldn't do this without them. Thank you all for being here this evening and helping us to celebrate Dave Downey and John and Marge Albin. Now I'd like to introduce Stephanie Stewart, Vice President for Communication and External Affairs. Stephanie works really closely with our entrepreneurial program and is going to share some highlights from this year. Stephanie?
Thank you, Tracy. Good evening. It's my distinct pleasure to speak with you this evening about the newest addition to the Parkland Entrepreneurial Network, Cobra Venture. As you know, we've had great success over the years with Applied Media Promotions, our in-house PR firm, Perimeter Road Sound Recordings, the in-house record label at Parkland College, and as I mentioned, Cobra Venture now. The concept of Cobra Venture started almost exactly a year ago. I had stepped into this role, and Tracy soon after stepped into her new role as executive director of the foundation. And we started to discuss ways that we could expand the impact of our donors on our students, particularly in the area of entrepreneurship, and provide additional resources to them, not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom, to extend the possibilities that they had when they came here to Parkland College. After much research and many conversations with community members and many individuals in this room, Cobra Venture was born. I was fortunate enough in that journey to tap a former colleague, Mark Shagnon. Mark, if you could please stand, I'd like to recognize you. Mark had just retired, and I gave him a call because he has some really great experience in developing youth programs, but particularly youth programs focused on entrepreneurship. And I knew him as a colleague and a friend, and I knew that he would do some amazing things for our students here at Parkland College, so thank you for coming in and being a part of that. I appreciate that. So the program we designed was done so with the thoughtful input of those who had made AMP and Perimeter Road what it became. Cindy Smith, I know, is here tonight. She was integral in that, Dean Nancy Sutton, and many others. And so we wanted to make Cobra Venture a success and use a cohort-based model to really support students as they thought about conceptualizing their businesses and launching them. We also looked outside for expertise, putting together a diverse and dynamic advisory committee, many of whom are here tonight as well, to provide input into the format of the program and help us select the very first class of Cobra Venture students. We proceeded with the full support of Dr. Ramage and our Board of Trustees, and we utilized the full expertise of Parkland Community Education, which provides non-credit programming. Tris Henderson and Jesse McCluskey-Gilbert are here this evening as well. And we really leveraged their expertise and the collaboration across units on the campus to help make Parkland's Cobra Venture program a success. And kudos to Tracy and her team and the entire foundation board for their support of this as well. It would not be possible without her team and also our donors. So to say that Cobra Venture was the result of collaboration would be an understatement. Collaboration is the absolute foundation of its success, and we look forward to continuing to grow the program in the years to come to benefit our students. This spring, the first cohort of Cobra Venture students completed a series of specialized workshops designed to give them the building blocks to build their businesses while they worked to write their business plans. And they came from many academic programs. They weren't all business students. The capstone event was a pitch competition that brought students on stage in the Parkland Student Union to pitch their ideas to the community. A panel of community experts listened intently, asked questions, deliberated, and then selected a winner. In a few moments, we'll be honoring our Student Entrepreneur of the Year, who was the winner of this year's pitch competition. But I want to take a minute to recognize all of the student participants for their hard work, determination, vision, and passion. And many of them are here tonight. If you're a Cobra Venture student, could you please stand and be recognized? It takes all of those things to complete the program, not for credit, but outside of their academic programming, and continue on the journey of entrepreneurship. Congratulations to you all. And now the team at Parkland College Television has put together a video. They followed the students on their journey this spring, and we'd like to show that to you now.
The inaugural Cobra Venture campaign kicked off on January 17th. The Student Entrepreneur Cohort is designed to provide current Parkland College students who are wanting to start their own business with networking opportunities and a series of business-based workshops.
One thing that comes to mind is the marketing aspect.
The networking, so getting to know all the people that have already gone through it, they've already gone through the trials, they've succeeded.
Where do you get the money and how do you hire people and the paperwork and all the taxes?
In all, 9 proposals were selected to be part of the first Cobra Venture. Those 9 students would spend their spring semester crafting a business plan and preparing for the chance to pitch their business idea to the community.
And the business that I want to open is Transportation with Care.
Drum business for real estate, construction, and agriculture departments.
Make it very simple for people in Africa to use computer laptops.
Their guide on this journey would be project facilitator Mark Shagnon. The local educator and business owner would use his wealth of experience, knowledge, and enthusiasm to mentor the student entrepreneurs.
I just love interacting with students. I love it. And I did it for 20 years at Champaign Schools, and now I get to do it here at Parkland. I've run my own businesses, so I know what it's like to say, I have an idea of what's going to go on. How do I put it together? How do I build it? How do I do accounting? How do I do the legal side? How do I do the product? How do I do the marketing? All of those pieces going together to make it work.
The culmination of Cobra Venture 2019 would be the pitch competition.
I'm Semi Maki, and I'm from the Republic Democratic of the Congo.
But by using excellent equipment and specific systematic checklists.
Mostly what I do is I make cutting boards, pizza peels.
Not only did the budding entrepreneurs get the opportunity to share their ideas with the community, but the winner would come away with $3,000 in seed money to help get their business off the ground.
The winner of the $3,000 prize of the Murray Wise Student Entrepreneur of the Year is Elizabeth Allen.
In the end, Elizabeth Allen's pitch for Central Illinois Vinyl earned her the title of the Murray Wise Student Entrepreneur of the Year.
I didn't really know what to expect, but I was very nervous on that first time that we met, and I was not sure how everyone would want to interact with each other because of course it's a competition, and so I was worried that maybe there wouldn't be a lot of, camaraderie and talking, but that was completely wrong. Like, I got help from many of my peers. It was just really nice to get to know everyone, and also the people who came in to speak to us, that was also really nice hearing from them and getting to talk to them and meet them. I feel very joyful, and I feel part of a community, and I feel excited about the future.
It was a great adventure this spring, and we could not have done this without the founding members and contributors to the Entrepreneurial Founders Program. Because of your support, we were able to launch Cobra Venture and provide additional opportunities for our students. At this time, I'd like to ask Murray Wise, our 2014 V. Dale Cozad Entrepreneur of the Year recipient, and Valerie Wise to join us on stage. Murray Wise Associates not only supported the vision of a student entrepreneurship program, but provided additional resources for the development of the pitch competition and award monies for the winner of the pitch competition. We are pleased to recognize Elizabeth Allen, if Elizabeth could come up here as well, as this year's Murray Wise Associates Student Entrepreneur of the Year. Thanks to Murray Wise and Associates, Elizabeth is receiving a check tonight for $3,000 that she's planning to use to further advance her business, Central Illinois Vinyl. You can't win something without a big check. I'm not sure where she's going to put that giant check, but I think she'll have somewhere. And now I'd like to bring Greg Cozad back to the stage for the rest of our program.
Tonight, the Lifetime Achievement Award is a special honor. You know, we've had 10 Entrepreneurs of the Year, but we've only had 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards, so it is truly something special. John and Marge Albin are the recipients of tonight's award, and boy, are they deserving. They have been leaders in banking, farming, and education for decades and have been great servants to Parkland College. They're outstanding honorees for this Lifetime Achievement Award. John and Marge have served as Chairman Emeritus and Vice Chairman Emeritus of the Longview Capital Corp., a bank holding company based in Newman, Illinois. 41 years ago, the Albins purchased the $2.2 million Longview State Bank, the smallest in Illinois, to better serve local agricultural needs. Through financial acumen, the Longview Capital Corp. Grew to acquire over $450 million in assets and 12 bank locations throughout East Central Illinois. Today, their sons Perry and David lead the company. The Albins were educated in Newman schools and are proud residents of the farming community there. After getting married in 1949, they ran their family farm. John studied at Millikan University in agricultural and at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, graduating from UIUC in 1950 with bronze tablet honors. Marge studied at Eastern Illinois University and the prestigious Wharton School of Finance at the University of Pennsylvania, but before becoming an enrolled agent before the IRS. The Albans' influence on agriculture and education would soon extend beyond their local community of Newman. John has had many leadership roles in agriculture throughout his life. He was named the News-Gazette Farm Leader of the Year in 1999. Elected to the Parkland College Board of Trustees in 1968, John would serve as trustee for 31 years, 15 of them as board chairman. Marge, a founding, that deserves one. Marge, a founding board member and former committee chair of the Illinois Farm Development Authority, was appointed by President Ronald Reagan as the Midwest representative to a 9-person commission to help write the 1988 Farm Bill, and she's also served on the Parkland College Foundation Board. John and Marge were instrumental in the development of Academy on Capitalism and Limited Government at the University of Illinois, and they have been exemplary civic leaders in their community as well. They both served on numerous community and civic organizations and have also established the Longview Foundation to further support education and religion in their community. John and Marge are outstanding servants of both the community and Parkland, and we want to recognize you tonight for your outstanding life achievements. John and Marge. Congratulations.
Can you talk with us? Can you hear me? Well, I just say that you got to have confidence in your friends and people you associate with. And if you believe in them, they'll rise to the occasion and make you famous. And you don't have to do it yourself. And so there's a lot of people sitting around here who have done things to help Marge and me be, I guess, successful. I hate to call it that, but I guess we're successful. And we look at each other every day and thank God that we can still be together after almost 70 years. So I can thank you for all attending, and I'm pleased to have this award. There's only one thing I want to add, and I miss Salima Harris. Salima, Bonnie Kelly was there. We picked the best person to be president of Parkland College when a lot of people wouldn't have selected a minority female. And I was really proud that that turned out to be a very successful venture. Thank you.
Congratulations once again. So tonight we honor Dave Downey as Entrepreneur of the Year, and we have basically an all-star cast of speakers to pay tribute to Dave. The first speaker tonight is Peter Fox, and I'm going to make just a few comments about Peter. He has a lengthy resume and many outstanding achievements. He's the manager of Fox Atkins Development, which has developed this research park here at the University of Illinois. He developed this iHotel and Conference Center, which is a great community asset. Peter, in my mind, has been probably one of the most pivotal, if not the pivotal person in the development of the entrepreneurship culture in our community. And I'll give you just an example. A little over 20 years ago, when Peter talked with our family about creating the lecture and scholarship program through the College of Business at the University of Illinois, we got the program going, and Peter's restless nature just wasn't satisfied with what was happening. And he went off and went over to the College of Engineering and created what's called the COZAD New Venture Competition, and many of you are probably aware of it, but it really, in terms of what goes on at university campuses, is a leader throughout the country. There are over 500 students each year at the University of Illinois from engineering, business, ACES, and other colleges that participate in this new venture competition. The finals was in this very room. It's the 20th year this year. And there's been people that have actually sold their companies, one, I believe, for over $100 million that started as a result of that new venture competition. So that's the kind of influence Peter's had on this community. Peter's also been a very good friend of Dave Downey's and is now going to share a few words about Dave. Peter, could you come on up?
I think Greg emphasizes few words, but what I wanted to say in the beginning is I've had the opportunity to be here a couple of times before, and oftentimes you come to dinner and people ask you to give money and you say, okay, fine. Was it well spent? And when the program was started 10 years ago, the leaders, I would say, really were Roy Lambert, Donald Dodds, and Carl Meyer, who, in my opinion, I was sad not to see Carl tonight because I think he was probably the single best fundraiser that I've dealt with, and he always had a technique that I remember. He would come to my office and he'd always bring something for my son. And at the time it was some memorabilia about the Miami Hurricanes because my son liked their football team for a while, and Carl was a master, and in a lot of ways Carl was exactly like Greg's father, Dale, always focused, always positive, always had an agenda, stayed for about 10 minutes, and he was a delight to interact with. And in looking at Parkland's leadership, in particular the Albans, and my dad had the opportunity to know and interact with John and Marge, and I think my father felt he was extraordinarily lucky to have a credit of that quality. My father was a lender and ran a small bank in town, and I was reflecting, we were talking about what do you say about Dave, and we're rehearsing on the phone the other day, and Jane's on the phone, and Greg is on the phone, Greg Likens that is, and Joe White. And fortunately, I don't have to follow Joe tonight because he'll be more articulate and I think better spoken. But what I was thinking about afterwards is, I said, what do I remember about Dave? And I think the first thing is that I wasn't really sure about Dave. I didn't know him, but periodically he'd ask me to come to his office. And I wasn't sure if it was an invitation or a summons. And I would go over there, and he would have something to say to me, and then I'd leave, and I'd kind of walk back to my place, and I'd say, you know, I think I learned something. And I did learn a lot. And what I learned was, it was interesting to sell, but if you didn't know what you're selling, you weren't going to be very effective. And another thing I learned from Dave, I said, would you be willing to spend some time with my son? And thankfully, Dave did. My son's been very successful, and a lot of it, I think, has to do, he listened to you. And you're talking about tributes to Dave. The most important tribute I can give you is, as I mentioned, my dad ran a small bank in town. It was quite a bit smaller than Busey, and I think he would aspire to do what you guys have done at Busey in the leadership, but it was a successful bank. And my dad retired, and I said, how are you doing? He says, well, I'm doing fantastic. Dave Downey set me up for success. And he did it in a way that I don't think my father really would have thought about. My dad was well educated. He went to Harvard Business School and Williams College. But Dave sold him a product, actually sold First National Bank of Champaign a product. And I think about it today. My mother's 92, living in Hilton Head, living very well. And so our family thanks you.
Thanks, Peter. I've had the privilege of knowing our next speaker, Joe White, primarily the last 10 years through participating in a Bible study together. Joe is a man of tremendous intellect, wisdom, and insight, and he's someone I look up to and regularly seek input and counsel on in a variety of areas. Joe is the James F. Tuohy Professor of Business and Leadership in the Geese College of Business. He is President Emeritus of the University of Illinois and Dean and Professor Emeritus of the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. Joe and his wife, Mary, moved to Champaign-Urbana 15 years ago, and Joe's made many great friends here, but none more than Dave Downey. Joe has come to regularly counsel with Dave, as have many other presidents, chancellors, deans, and athletic directors who have sought out Dave through the years. Joe knows Dave not only as a close friend through the U of I, but also as a fellow board member on M Financial, headquartered in Portland, Oregon. M is a company born 40 years ago in the spirit of entrepreneurship, and Dave has been a leader of a member firm and a leader of the company almost the entire 40 years. Joe has participated in the academic and business worlds throughout his career. He's served on 3 major boards, all of which have an entrepreneurial bent. Gordon Food Services, now which is one of America's 25 largest private companies. For 24 years, he's served on Equity Residential, an S&P 500 company chaired by Sam Zell. And for 20 years, he's been a director of Kelly Services, whose founder, Russ Kelly, invented the staff industry. Joe, could you come up and please share a few thoughts on Dave Downey?
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, everybody.
Where's Dave? Speaking to you. Thanks, Greg, for the opportunity to help honor Dave this evening. I know Dave in three ways. Most important, as a very close personal friend. Also as a U of I legend, and as a fellow board member of M Financial. First, the friendship. It began when Dave served on the search committee for the U of I president in 2004. After I was appointed, I went to have lunch with Dave at his office. I thanked him for what I presumed was his support. He said, "Well, you seemed well qualified even though you're from the University of Michigan." Then he said, "But what really caught my attention as I was reading through your background materials was a speech you gave in which you said something nice about whole life insurance. That was reason enough for me." In 15 years, Dave has always been there for me. Through many good times and a few bad ones as well. What higher compliment can you pay a friend than to say, "Thanks for always being there for me, Dave"? And on behalf of the legions of people for whom you have been there when needed, we all thank you. I was far from the first U of I president, chancellor, dean, athletic director, or anyone else to darken Dave's door. We've all been in that office. We came looking for the same thing, advice, but he never gave it to us. Dave likes to say, "I don't give advice, I give feedback." And it's true. But embedded in that feedback is great advice. It's just a lot easier to take when Dave says, for example, "Why would you want to do that?" rather than, "I advise you not to do that." Dave, Carl Rogers would be very proud. You're a great non-directive counselor. Dave is a U of I legend, as you know, but you're probably thinking of basketball and 53 points against Indiana. That's part of it. But it's really the tip of the iceberg. Dave's contributions to U of I run much deeper and wider. Dave is a role model for using education as a pathway from humble beginnings to the world and a great career. Dave achieved and championed academic excellence. He's given so much of himself to U of I as a student, an athlete, an alumnus, a trustee, a philanthropist, and a wise counselor to so many of us. Dave cares deeply about the university in all of its dimensions. It occurred to me in thinking about Dave that he and Manny Jackson, another U of I legend, to whom Dave introduced me, and I'm grateful for that, they share something important in common. Many people, including at the university, think of them first and foremost as great athletes. But what I learned as I got well acquainted with them is that neither man defines himself that narrowly. Both Dave and Manny are great entrepreneurial businessmen. They're broad-gauge leaders. They're an inspiration to others. They're generous philanthropists, and they're wonderful human beings. Manny is African American, of course, and that reminds me of one of Dave's finest qualities. Dave treats everyone he meets with dignity and respect. And he's outraged by injustice to any individual or group. Dave has acted courageously on that instinct and in a constructive way over many years, much to the benefit of our community and to our great university. This evening we honor Dave as an entrepreneur. I was surprised reading the News Gazette today to see that he said, I really never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. Well, I'll tell you this, if Dave Downey isn't an entrepreneur, nobody is. Why do I say that? He's been one since college. As far as I can tell, and he confirmed it this morning in the paper, Dave's never had a boss or a conventional job. He's run his own show starting before he graduated from college. He took risks. He did things his own way. He served clients rather than a boss. And he always put those clients' interests first. And we, his clients, love him for it. Dave's firm, the Downey Group, is a member firm, as Greg said, of M Financial Incorporation. I call M the largest life insurance company you've never heard of. It's a company comprised of 140 of the very best independent insurance and financial services companies in America. Firms like the Downey Group. They're the best of the best at what they do. Dave is a legend within M Financial and in the entire life insurance industry. For a decade, he and I served together on the M Financial Board of Directors. Some of you might remember, the older ones of you might remember the commercial, "When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen." Now, I don't really know if that was ever true, but I can tell you that at the board table, when Dave speaks, and he chooses his moments carefully and wisely, people listen. They listen carefully, they listen attentively, and they listen respectfully. And Dave has had enormous positive impact. I've seen it personally. So Dave, my friend, U of I legend, great entrepreneur and business leader, congratulations. This honor is so well deserved, and I'm very happy to be able to speak on behalf of everybody for whom you've done and will continue to do so much. Thank you, Dave.
Our next speaker tonight is Greg Likens. Greg is chairman of First Busey Corporation, a $9.5 billion publicly traded bank holding company you might have heard of, and is a partner in a private investment firm, Armory Capital, and an investor in many private enterprises. He's a graduate of the University of Illinois and is having served as chairman of the board of the University of Illinois Foundation, doing an outstanding job at that. Greg has also served on the board of First Busey Corporation with Dave for over 25 years. Greg, could you come up and share some insights about Dave?
I was feeling pretty comfortable until my friend and colleague, Amy, turned to me after Joe's talk and said, "Sorry, you have to follow him." But it is indeed an honor. Before I begin talking about my little bitty buddy, I have had some thoughts as these comments have been made about this incredible institution, Parkland College. And actually, Amy said something else to me tonight that was really remarkable, and I think it particularly applies to Parkland and the other wonderful educational organizations we have. But she said she came that close to not go to college. That close, right, Amy? And her career has been unbelievable. She's an EVP at the bank and young and doing terrific. But I think with respect to Parkland College, it really does catch thousands of folks that come that close to not going and getting the worthwhile education that, the remarkable education and boost that Parkland gives. So Tom, I have to commend Parkland again. So. I actually woke up early this morning. I'd been dreaming, and I thought I would announce that when I first met Dave Downey, I was playing on the basketball team with him at the University of Illinois. And it's kind of close to that, but I think I represent a group of folks in age time that perhaps were impacted by Dave Downey more than anybody would ever imagine. I happened to be about 13 when Dave was first playing his first year, which I believe is a sophomore, right? Couldn't play as a freshman in those days. He became MVP of the whole team as a sophomore, first year. He became MVP the second year and MVP the third year. So he must have been pretty good. But it reflects, and I get a little nostalgic about it because I recall sitting on the couch at home in the metropolis of Bellflower, Illinois, watching the black and white television with my father, really focused on Dave Downey competing remarkably with the best teams in the country. And that still is impactful to me. It was broadcast on WCIA, owned by Chris Meyer, and it was sponsored by Chesty Potato Chips, and Tom Shanings was broadcasting. And that was nearly 60 years ago in my life, and it was big then, and it supported my tremendous love and affection for my father, and he was an Illini, and that's when we first fell in love with Dave Downey. It's a real honor to speak about this fella because, remarkably, coming out of just about nowhere, I fall into an opportunity to get to know this fellow pretty darn well. He's had a huge impact on my life and a whole bunch of other people. I do have credibility, though, of knowing him even a little bit more because when I was in the 8th grade, he came to Bellflower, Illinois to speak at our 8th grade athletic sports banquet. And candidly, he was the most famous person up to that time and still that's ever been in Bellflower. That was 60 years ago, and it was a big deal. It filled the gym. There was not a single person in the community that was not there. They turned out to see this basketball star and to hear him speak. Through the years, I still see folks from Bellflower is about 30 miles from here. It's smaller than Newman. And I still see a few of these folks every now and then, and they still remember Dave Downey. They've gotten to know a little bit that I hang around him, and they remember that evening. Donna Green probably remembers that evening. And I did remember some things they remembered about him. Number one, he was quite tall. Number two, he was a nice fellow. 3, he was an excellent speaker. Probably just like tonight, he will not have a note. And 4, he consumed a huge amount of Bellflower home cooking. So that really did begin and add to my relationship with Dave. And I thought Dave was a bit humble this morning in his description in the interview, as he is, with the News-Gazette. In those days, everybody that had anything to do with Illinois was a fan of Dave Downey. They watched what he did, they talked about him, they even talked about his academics. It's not often you hear a basketball star being described by how smart he is. And in Bellflower, they had a term, and in small town, photographic memory. And I do recall to this day, people would say, that guy's not only good, but he has a photographic memory. And then I had an opportunity through all these years to hang around him, and he does have a photographic memory. It's unbelievable. He has many facets, as you've heard tonight from these folks, and every one of them has been totally accurate. He's an athlete, scholar, businessman, mentor, philanthropist, philosopher, and a center of influence. He's displayed all these characteristics and strengths in many ways. He has a certain attitude that I would attribute a lot to his success. And actually, I attribute a lot of the success of Dale Kozad, Greg, to the same characteristic. Dave Downey has on his license plate, probably for the last 50 years, 40 years maybe, KOKO, K-O-K-O. And it's called Keep On Keepin' On. And his level of persistence, along with his talent, really has contributed to great success. And I have admired that throughout the time. I'm personally pretty happy he didn't become senator, though he would have been a great senator, but I think he's had perhaps even more impact in the non-political world. He had remarkable upbringing, and you've all heard about his upbringing to some extent. Dave says he not only was from the wrong side of the tracks in Canton, you couldn't see the wrong side of the tracks from where he lived. He really lived in a very meager situation. His coal mining father was a great fellow, but didn't have the opportunity to learn to read. He actually built with his hands a rim to put on a building near his house, and he made that rim smaller than the regular basketball rim. It's probably something we could invent today, Dave, that could do well, and certainly you know what that resulted in and the talent that Dave developed in terms of shooting accuracy. His mother was wonderful. She was a woman of faith and caring, obviously. They didn't provide any major financial support for their children, but what they gave their children was way more important than the financial support that they might have had. His athletic prowess was incredible, as we've all mentioned. His teams did comment on occasion that Dave did want the ball. You never passed the ball to Dave expecting to get the ball back. Another said Dave had to ice down his shooting arm after every game. He was an offensive machine. As you know, he was an accomplished public speaker, spoke all over the world on various topics, actually, drawing on his philosophies about life and his relationship style of building sales and business. I love a couple quotes he often used. If you help the client achieve their goals, they will help you achieve your goals. And in the personal world, he mentioned, one thing you can't give your kids is what you didn't have. As Joe mentioned, I think Dave's a little bit embarrassed about getting Entrepreneur of the Year award. I agree with Joe and the others that those thoughts might be a little flawed. He is absolutely an entrepreneur. He's never been afraid of risks at any level, and I related a bit to the basketball. He never held back from charging into difficult situation where two giant defenders might be standing in his way. He's done that in business too. Sales is a hard task. It's not something that lots of people really get enthused about. And you often get rejected. Rejection is horrible. It's tough to deal with. It's entrepreneurial to jump in and go for it. And that's what Dave did very, very successfully. His firm is remarkable. Several have mentioned it. The firm, I believe, Dave, and this is an estimate I know, has placed over $5 billion of coverage for its clients. Many corporations and organizations, a particular specialty in dealing with very high-level professionals like Big Four accounting firms, law firms. It's really been remarkable what this small in number but powerful life insurance professional planning firm has done. That in and of itself is a remarkable entrepreneurial achievement. And close to my heart, of course, is that he, back in 1993, along with Chris Meyer and George Chaplin, set about the risky and ambitious plan and entrepreneurial effort to build a solid community banking group from a small start, starting with the Bank of Illinois, previously called the Trevitt Mattis Bank, which has evolved into Busey Bank. Van Dukman and I have both greatly appreciated, learned from, and enjoyed the tremendous opportunity to be a partner with Dave and the other folks in that 25-year endeavor, and we have had fun. Finally, and most importantly, Dave Downey is one of the most caring people I've ever met. I cannot name all the behind-the-scenes support he has given to individuals and organizations across a wide range. As has been mentioned, he's had a particular love, affection, and talent for supporting people of lesser means, with a real special focus on minority opportunity and giving people the confidence and self-confidence to improve upon themselves. He has quietly shared his talent and his resources and financial resources through decades. He's been a mentor and counselor and financial supporter to dozens of leaders, individuals, and organizations, virtually all anonymously. In my opinion, Dave is a true treasure and very deserving of this wonderful honor. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Greg. That was great. Our final tribute tonight is from Jane Hayes. Jane has been the life insurance advisor with Dave at the Downey Group for the past 25 years. In 1994, Dave recruited Jane from her law partnership at Thomas Mamer & Hoy. They thought she might eventually be Dave's potential professional successor. Today, Dave and Jane have been married almost 10 years. They work together and independently. Jane shares that she does not now aspire to be Dave's successor. She notes that they are an example of how life is full of unexpected changes and circumstances. Things often turn out differently than you originally expect, so a good plan is always being flexible and adaptable. Jane, would you come up and share some thoughts?
Thank you. Wow, I have so many great people to follow. I hope I don't repeat too much of the same information, but when Dave recruited me to come to the Downey Group, I didn't know much about him or about his business. It may surprise you, but I wasn't that interested in his athletic background. So I talked to people who did know a lot about him and about his business. He has a national practice of successful clients and a great reputation for honesty. He's a life insurance expert and a creative consultant. He works with and has referrals from top agents across the U.S. So how did Dave achieve that professional success? And I thought about that, like you, Greg, in the context of those entrepreneurial students at Parkland today who are so impressive. And I think many of the things that made Dave successful are still applicable to you today, or will be in your careers. To a large extent, I think he was successful because he was so entrepreneurial in his practice. He was a trailblazer who did not follow typical pathways. He remained quietly independent, and he designed, launched, and then conducted for many years a very unique kind of professional practice. Dave has always been an innovator, often unconventional in his thinking and in his actions. He says that a lot of people considered that he was marginally weird. That's how he puts it. Maybe that was partially because he grew a beard in the late 1960s. He read psychology and poetry. He was active in local civil rights efforts. And he did things like resign from a local service club because of their racially discriminatory policies. Professionally, he has always been an innovator and independent, or depending on your point of view, marginally weird, too. First of all, in the late 1970s, although he was one of their top agents in the US at that time, he made the bold choice to leave the traditional captive insurance agency system of a very high-quality mutual life insurance carrier to form his own independent firm that was client-centered instead of being carrier-centered. Then he joined the fledgling M Financial Group that Joe referred to, And he was a very long-time leader in M and still is. M was founded on the then very novel entrepreneurial notion that a small network of independent agents could leverage their influence on behalf of their successful clients to obtain better policies and service than the insurance companies were offering to their usual retail clients. Another entrepreneurial thing about Dave's practice is that he is always finding new and creative ways to structure policies and to design plans and to customize and build flexibility into those plans. Most of his clients are entrepreneurs themselves or business owners. He focused always on designing and selling policies that he thought if he were in their shoes, he would want to buy. Sometimes those ideas go against his own financial interest. Another very entrepreneurial aspect of Dave's practice has always been his early adoption of technology, and I think that is even more applicable today than it was historically. Because of technology, he built a national practice without a big back office and a lot of overhead, and without moving away from Champaign, where he wanted to stay. Finally, Dave concentrates on what he thinks he can do really well, which is limited to life and disability insurance. He did not follow the trend to increase and diversify revenue by adding other services and products. He turned down opportunities to join the home office of life insurance companies and to become an executive. He could have made a lot more money if he had taken a different approach. But he's had a very profitable practice. He's been able to live in this community for all of his adult life. He's never had a boss. He has seen the world, and he is respected and emulated by all kinds of wonderful people who he respects and emulates in turn. He's respected and emulated even by folks who know nothing about athletics. So, thank you and congratulations, Dave.
Well, he's a good friend. Humble.
Very inclusive.
Trusting. Thoughtful.
Great stamina.
Very genuine and caring.
He's a great friend.
Dave's mother and father both were only educated through grade school. My grandfather had to leave going to school in the 3rd grade to work the mines down in Kentucky and Alabama. They eventually migrated to Canton, and I think Dave didn't even have running plumbing facilities in the house until he was about 10 years old.
Well, he came here from Canton, came here to play basketball, and was a very successful basketball player. And I know that he had a chance to play professional basketball, and I think the guy who was the owner of, at that time, the St. Louis Hawks, talked to him, knew that he was going to make the team, but also knew of Dave's intelligence and the fact that he was had been admitted to law school.
Many students come here and many leave, but he was one of the ones that came and stayed, and he was a good one. Glad he came and glad he stayed.
Well, he's done a lot for this community. Serves on the board at Busey Bank and First Busey. I think he's committed himself to this community for his whole lifetime.
Dave gives. Dave's wealth really comes from his ability to help people and talk to people and get people involved.
Dave became a critical advisor and financial advisor for Marriage and Stibbick Kinnigo, who owned the News Gazette and the radio station properties. Dave encountered and dealt with some exceptionally challenging situations to retain the newspaper and radio station as a local entity after Mrs. Kinnigo's death. Not many people know about it. I was an insider, and Dave's never really shared much about what was going on in that regard, but I know firsthand that for all intents and purposes, back in the early 2000s, Dave saved the media company for this community.
This goes back to our own law firm, and it involves both Dave and Jane Hayes. Stuart Mamer, one of my longtime partners, who's now deceased, mentored her when she first started practicing law. Stuart came in and he was really down, and I said, what happened? He said, well, I just got really bad news on one of my sons whose cancer has gotten much worse, and he was really depressed. And then about 15 minutes later, he comes back in and he said, gee, Dave and Jane called and they want to come by and see me. About an hour later, Jane and Dave had come and left, and Stuart comes back in the library again, and he said, I'm just blown away. They are setting up a scholarship at the University of Illinois College of Law in my name.
Things have changed a lot over the years, everything from technology to hairdos. Curly perms, and I don't mean mine. Dave used to actually have a curly perm. Dave built the building in 1985, and it kind of looks and feels more like a house. And it was always kind of funny because when we first were settled in here, people used to walk in and ask us, you know, is this a house? But I think that Dave wanted it to look and feel more like a home instead of the traditional business setting, because so much time is spent here.
Well, I think he's done masterful work for our family to begin with, and I know of other families of some prominence. I know through Dave that he's done financial plannings for them, and I just think he's very talented at what he does.
Well, I think Dave is a very intelligent man. The good thing about Dave as far as an entrepreneur is that he listens, he takes advice, he gives advice, and Dave is like a team player and works very well with many types of people in many different organizations.
He was innovative in the insurance world. He testified in Congress and did that sort of thing, and in committees in Congress, and so he was a well-known person of the industry, and he helped found a company called the M Company that was a brokerage company that developed unique products in the insurance world.
He has a vision. I mean, he sees the forest rather than the trees, and he can see the broader aspects of business and actually of society as a whole. And he also has a very reasoned and thoughtful way of expressing himself.
Dave likes to give you suggestions on what you probably should do, but he doesn't give you direct feedback to do it. He may put a magazine on your desk and say there's an interesting article in the magazine, but he's not going to tell you specifically to read it. But a few days later, he might ask about what was in the magazine, so he did have an expectation that I would read it.
Dave gives you the opportunity by getting your foot in the door, but he's not the type of leader that will take you by the hand and lead you and say, you must go down this path. He lets you figure out what's important to you, what your passion is.
He's a terrific communicator, very likable guy, and very articulate about what he believes in, and he really conveys a sense that he cares about you and he listens well, and as a result, a lot of good things get done as they have in his life.
The way I knew he was coming home is he had an old '66 Corvette, and when he would round the corner on Prospect onto Armory, I could hear the mufflers on that car 4 blocks down at our house, and I knew it was about the time to play catch, you know, shoot hoops or go out and throw the football.
He's been a committed father. He's paid attention to what his girls and son have done through the years, and I think he's done a nice job in staying related to them and knowing what's going on in their lives.
I think Dave is a strong family man. He is a committed individual to his children. I've met all of his children and seen Dave interact and all this in family situations. And Dave is just really a great guy and a good family man.
I know in talking with his kids, they love their dad. His grandkids love him, and they're very proud of who he is. But when you see Jay here, who lives here, his son, as well as Jill out in California and Jennifer up in Chicago, they have kind of the same caring, trustworthy demeanor about them, which I think really flows from Dave.
I don't remember exactly when I met Dave, but it was very soon after coming to coach at the University of Illinois. My earliest memories of Dave are hearing about the great Illini basketball player who had 53 points against the University of Indiana. We bonded more in the last 10 years. We both had a little more free time to do so. So lunches at the bowling alley have been a great way to become closer. I was thrilled to be inducted into the U of I Athletics Hall of Fame in the same class with Dave. That was really special. He's been a stalwart leader, serving in many advisory capacities. His philanthropy directed toward the U of I is very well known. He's also one of the best selections for this stellar award the committee has made to date.
Warmest congratulations, Dave, from two of your biggest fans. Go, Dave!
Dave, it's an honor to present you with the Entrepreneur of the Year Award. You know, Dale Kozad was here tonight. Dale, my dad, loved eagles. He had eagles all over his office. And he used to say, eagles don't flock. Eagles are strong, they're independent and leaders. And Dave Downey is truly an eagle. Congratulations, Dave, on the Entrepreneur of the Year. Thank you.
After having been seated that long, I understand you may want to stand. I appreciate it. You know, I feel a little bad that my mom and dad couldn't have heard this. My dad would have been kind of proud. My mom would have believed it. But I'm going to show you what an organized mind looks like. And by the way, during the last 12 months, I've been honored a couple of times. One is to be with Lou in the Hall of Fame, and this one with the Albans is every bit as equal to that. These people were entrepreneurs. I was an entrepreneur. As a matter of fact, one of the early stories I heard about life insurance salespeople. Now, everybody grows up wanting to be a life insurance salesman, and then everybody who didn't wishes that the guy would call on them. Oh, that's not that popular, huh? Well, anyway, there was this little boy in this country town, very smart little boy, and he was playing alongside the road, and he had some mud and some water. Local physician comes by going to early rounds. He said, "Hey, Billy, what you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm taking a little bit of this mud, a little bit of manure, and a little water. I'm going to make myself a doctor." And he said, "Boy, don't talk to me that way. You can't talk to a doctor like that." A little while later, the local lawyer comes by. And he said, "Hey, Billy, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm taking a little bit of mud and a little bit of water, a little bit more manure. Going to make myself a lawyer." And he said, "You can't talk like that to a lawyer. You get yourself sued." A
A little bit later, about 10 o'clock, life insurance guy is going to work early that day. And so he sees him alongside. He said, I'm smarter than those other guys. He said, Billy, you're going to tell me you're going to take a little bit of that water, a little bit of manure, going to make yourself a life insurance salesman. He said, no, sir, I don't have nearly enough manure. I once heard that you shouldn't interrupt when you're being flattered. And maybe I should just sit down, because this was a really nice experience for me. I am very flattered, but I'm going to at least share a couple things I've noticed along the way. That's about the best I can do. I've been honored to be a part of this community for my entire professional career. I came over here to go to school and never left. And it's been good to me. And so if you see anything you like in me, you're really looking in the mirror, because I've been raised by this community. I once was told by one of my early mentors that you become the sum total of the books you've read and the people you've met. And so that's what I am. I've read some good books, and I've met a lot of really great folks, including many of you. Excuse me. One of the things, when Peter was talking about his dad, I don't even think he knows this, but the program that his dad bought, he called me because somebody else had come into the community who was a former Illinois basketball player, called on Mr. Fox, and he said, so Mr. Fox called me and said, Dave, you ought to be smart enough to do this. And I said, oh, I am. I know all about that. And I went and began to learn about it. And sure enough, I ended up with these kinds of plans. A number of your predecessors would say to me, why didn't you tell me earlier or give me more of that? I said, I can only be as smart as I am at this particular time. But it was a great program, and it was great for the folks. And, you know, this all comes from, I guess, paying attention a little bit. When I was a youngster, and it's already been mentioned several times that my dad couldn't read or write, and I was listening to a little radio in a house without indoor plumbing. I'd listen to Bradley basketball, and I learned to dream big dreams. A guy named Chick Hearn was a broadcaster. First time I actually saw a game, I was disappointed, because it wasn't nearly as exciting as listening to Chick Hearn. But my dad, I begged him for a hoop. I said, I want a basketball hoop. He said, we can't afford one. We lived in that little rented house. So one day he came home with a hoop, and he had made it. He was from a family of blacksmiths, and this hoop was a little small, as was mentioned, and we didn't know any better. We put it up on the backboard, had the yellow backboard, had this hoop, and the nice thing about it, nobody in my family had ever gone to college. We didn't have any aspirations for me. And we finally moved in town and got indoor plumbing, as Jay mentioned. That was kind of exciting. Actually, it wasn't nearly as exciting as writing your name in the snow. But there wasn't always snow, so anyway, I believed, as with a kid's naivete, that if you were smart, you probably would become a doctor or a lawyer, because they seemed to have all the money in town. So I worked real hard. I became a lawyer, and I found out how little you have to know to be a lawyer. It scares me to death to go to a doctor. You want to see what an organized mind looks like? That is my outline for the last 40-some years. There probably is some wisdom there because I got it from somebody else. Well, you get a microphone, you love to hear yourself speak. One of the good things that has happened for me is I have gotten a platform. We all have what we think to be a good message. I've been blessed to be able to travel the world and give my message. And my message is basically, it's not all that complicated to sell. What you have to do is put yourself in the place of the person you're selling to. And if you can do that regularly, you'll be all right, because everybody's selling. The doctor is selling the person on getting their prescription filled. You know that probably half of the prescriptions written in Mayo are not ever, even the first one's not filled? Doesn't do you any good to pay for expensive advice if you don't take it. So that's one of the things that I think that I learned early, and I had some great mentors. I said earlier to somebody tonight, you need a good mentor and a good ancestor. Well, you can't very well program and get your ancestors, but the mentors, you can look around and find one. Mine, you saw, was Frank Murphy. Now, you think about Frank Murphy, he went to the Olympics in 1912. So I can claim a heritage from 1912 until now, and never having had a boss, but having a great mentor. As mentors are either real or imagined. My mother read the Bible to me. That was her only thing she would read for a long time. And in reading that Bible, she emphasized the importance of understanding what words meant. And I really got interested in that. And I have spent a lot of time over the years reflecting on the fact that my mom with a 6th grade education, my dad unable to write and read, it really gave me a lot, because everywhere I looked was up. You know, when you're at the bottom, you look up, and everyone believed that I would do better than they did. And that's tough on our kids today. Many of us have children who we don't think will do as well, and it's hard to convince them that they will. So that was a blessing that I had. And so I'm going to try not to be guilty of going on too long. And I'm going to try not to be guilty of telling any jokes that Jane thinks not appropriate. But anyway, this is an opportunity for me to say to this community, you've been really good to me and really good for me. And the people who have been up here speaking, when I spoke at Bellflower, now Bellflower is probably near the center of the universe. It's somewhere in that neighborhood anyway. And I had an opportunity to go there. And then the other night I was talking to someone from Oakwood. And I have on in my man cave near my hoop, I'll tell you how I got the hoop in a minute. In my man cave, I have this little card from the Oakwood Methodist Women's Club. It was the first talk I'd ever given. And from there until getting to talk to you folks tonight, I've traveled the world, and some people have liked what I've had to say. Some haven't particularly, but I don't remember those. It's like I never remembered a shot that I missed. I was always surprised. As a matter of fact, Jane doesn't particularly like basketball or any other sport, but I still remember some of the days, and I remember that I'm getting better with age. One of the things that my daughter Jennifer remembered, we had our reunion of our basketball team, And there was a big guy named Larry Bauer on the team that used to muscle me. And then we had our 50th anniversary, and he said, "How did you get so damn many rebounds? You're not very big." And I just immediately reacted and said, "I tried to get them all." And that's one of the secrets of life, I think, is you try all the time, and every now and then you succeed. But if you don't try, you don't ever succeed. You know, Jane mentioned and others have mentioned that in my history, I got interested in philosophy. And I really kind of warmed up to the Eastern philosophy. And that was espoused by a guy named Lao Tzu. That's the old man. And Lao Tzu said, "Those who talk don't know. Those who know don't talk." Makes it kind of hard to want to give a talk, doesn't it? And we have Peter and Joe White, who talk so softly that they could carry the big stick. But you strain to listen a little bit, and that's important. Because the people who have something important to say, you don't know when it's going to occur. So you need to pay attention all the time. And you need to be trying to do, and I've always defined my job, is to help people do what they want to do and don't know how to do. And so if you listen long enough, people will tell you. But if you don't listen, you never will learn. So I'm trying to think what I would want to know from me if I were sitting out there tonight. And one of them I would probably want to know is how quickly is he going to get finished? You know, you have the interest curve that starts when the guy's introduced, and it goes down, down, down. And then he says, and in conclusion, I'm honored by some people that are here tonight, and I'm not going to be able to name everybody, but there are some people that have had a particular impact on me. Chris Meyer is one. Chris is a fairly soft-spoken, taciturn person who's been known to be very snug. And back in his earlier day, he visited a place, and one of the ladies came up to him and said, "Anything that you can name in 3 words, I will do for you for $200. Chris looked at her and says, "Paint my house." Maybe I ought to quit on that one. Well, I am going to wind it up. I have lots of things I'd like to share with you. And one of the things that I was taught a long time ago is that a closed mouth gathers no feet. That's one that you've got to continue to think about. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I hardly ever do tell anybody. It scares me to death when I hear something I've never heard before. But the way you say it makes a difference. And the words do make a difference. They are important. And one of the things that you need to recognize early, and I was fortunate to have someone help me with this, is there's a difference between truth and fact. Truth is what you believe, fact is either or. And one of the things, perception is a leading thing that most people have. They believe that what they see is what everybody else sees. And the best way I can express that is, to a plumber, a flush beats a full house every time. Well, the interest curve is about to go up. I welcome this opportunity for some of us to get better acquainted, for you to get to know me a little better. I am not a simple stick in the mud all the time. I've been thought of as being fairly square, and I probably am. But this is a chance for me to get to know you a little and say, thank you for being such a wonderful mentor to me. Because, as I say, the Albans, for example, now these are people who really accomplished some stuff. And when you believe in education, I really believe in it. That was a secret for me. I was a public school in Canton, Illinois, and somehow with that basketball hoop, I got to where I can make them a little better than others. But I found out the other secret is to try a little harder. Not a lot all the time, just a little bit. Because if you try a little harder, you're likely to be rewarded. And I've often said to younger people, and practically everybody now is younger, is if you're going to bother to show up, you might as well be good. Because it doesn't take a lot more, it just takes a little more. You try to get them all, and you'll get some. And so this is my thank you. I thank you, Joe, for saying some things that are very nice. I thank Peter for that. And I thank Tom for coming and asking me when I told him that I wasn't an entrepreneur. He said, well, fake it. And so I'm trying. Greg used to be about 6 foot, but he's been working with George and me for a lot of years, and he's gotten a little shorter. So I do want to say thanks a lot for this opportunity to be honored. It has been a real thrill for me to do this, and I want to say to Parkland in particular, you know, the Mike Martin on the video mentioned keeping the media company in the community. The person who really did that was Zelima Harris. And it's a long story, and I won't tell you now, but Zelima made that college, made the newspaper possible to stay here. It would have been gone. And all I did was kind of be a catalyst. And that's really the role that I've played a number of places. Same thing's true with Busey. We've gone from maybe 300 million of footings to 9.5 billion. I find that impressive, and that's been due to the people that we've worked with. And so this is really an entrepreneurial group here. You're all entrepreneurs, just in different ways. And so I'm going to wind up by saying thanks. I won't sing. I'll say thanks a lot. And I want to thank Greg for getting my name in front of this group, because, as you said, I've traveled the world and talked, but I very seldom get a chance to say hey to the people I really care about, which is the people in this community, in this room tonight. Thank you very much.
Let me offer just a special thank you to Greg Kozad and Peter Fox in particular for their support, their vision for this event. And I can tell you without hesitation that without their guidance over the years that this wouldn't be what it is today. And I think it's quite something special. Congratulations to John and Marge. You're pillars of our community. You're legends at Parkland College. We appreciate all that you've done and all that you continue to do. To Dave, I've known you for about 13 years. We've had 3 substantive conversations in that time. I've seen you lots. The first time, you invited me to OPH when I was newly minted as president at Parkland, and you told me that Parkland was a gem in the community. and it was something to take care of. I translated that as, don't screw it up, you idiot. And I've tried real hard not to do that. Second time, I had a little bit of a problem. There were some things not going well. I called you, you invited me to your house. We chatted for a bit. I told you about the issue. You fixed it. It was amazing. The third time was to talk about this award. And I told my wife, I'm going over about 4:30. It should take about 10 minutes. He's a busy man. I don't want to get in his way. And at about 7:30 that evening, she was texting me, where are you? Thank you for sharing your time and your non-advice and your wisdom with me. It is most appreciated. And speaking of appreciation, thanks to all of you for coming again. I know some of you have been multiple times. It means a lot to us, to Parkland College. We'll see you next time. Enjoy your evening, and thanks for coming.